Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us here on Facebook for our next installment of the Opera Live interview series. My name is Cody Martin. I'm the Director of Education for Pensacola Opera. And before we begin, I would like to announce an exciting opportunity coming up next month for children ages 6 to 14. As I'm sure you can understand, we are unable to host our annual opera camp in person at the Opera Center this year. So we are instead launching an opera camp at home with a full week's worth of activities and prompts and supplies to help children learn all about opera, theater, and music. Registration is open now, and for just $50, you'll receive a full activity guide, supplies for all of the activities, and a Pensacola Opera t-shirt mailed right to your home. So you'll be all set for the at-home camp, which takes place June 22nd through the 26th. I will put the link with more information about this camp in the comments below, so I hope you will pass that along if you know any young future opera divas or future artists of any kind. And now I'd like to welcome our guest for today. Conductor Michael Sakir was a 2011 artist in residence with us here at Pensacola Opera. And since then, he has gone on to coach and conduct at numerous opera companies across the country. And he now lives in Memphis, where he is the music director of Opera Memphis. So welcome, Michael. Let me get you pulled up here. There you are. Welcome.
Hi, Cody. Hi, Pensacola.
How are you?
Good. Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. You know.
I love looking at you and seeing the whole Sanger Theater right behind. It brings back such great memories.
It's like you're here, you know?
I hope you guys can get back there as soon as possible.
Me too. So I like to start off with just, if you want to give us maybe like a 60-second bio, where you're from, where you went to school, kind of how you got to where you are now.
Sure. I'm originally from Northern California. I studied at the Oberlin Conservatory and then the Boston Conservatory. And from there, I just hopped around from job to job for years. Des Moines Metro Opera, which is where you and I met, was the first company to give me a gig out of grad school. And then while I was there for the summer season in 2010, I met one Kyle Marrero, who auditioned me to be the pianist and music director for Pensacola Opera's education tour. And so in 2011, in the winter, I spent 4 very memorable months with your amazing company and with a lot of the same people there now, like Chandra, like Barry, Shannon. So shout out to them and shout out to the whole Pensacola family. I miss you guys. After that, it was just a lot more gigging around the country, working with companies like Florida Grand Opera, Santa Fe Opera. For a while, I was totally homeless. You know what that lifestyle is like. Peripatetic is my favorite word for it, which is constantly traveling for work.
Okay, I'll have to learn that word.
Until I ended up here in Memphis. And this is the end of my 3rd season as music director with Opera Memphis.
Fantastic. So let's go back to your time here at Pensacola. Do you have any favorite memories, or what did you do while you were here? Which shows did you play? Do you remember?
Yeah, I was the rehearsal pianist for the 2 main stage shows, Little Women by Mark Adamo and Puccini's Turandot. I was also playing the music director for oh my gosh, I love that photo with Aaron and Gabe and Eric. It's funny because Gabe was my housemate and here in Pensacola, and then Eric was my roommate in Des Moines for the year prior for the Opera Iowa education tour. So
oh my gosh,
that year Kyle brought everyone from Des Moines. That was so much fun. I love that photo. And so let's see what else. And then at the end of the season, following the education tour, following the main stage productions, I conducted the Artist in Residence Showcase Opera, which was Dominic Argento's Postcard from Morocco at the University of West Florida in the Black Box. And that was such a memorable experience that has since become one of my absolute favorite operas, even though it's lesser known. It showcased the 4 artists in residence and then a bunch of local singers, including Sheila Murphy-Dunn, who I believe is still a big name in the Pensacola community. Hey, Sheila.
Sure is.
That was such a great show. But I mean, I guess I remember most working a lot with Jerry Shannon. He was one of the first maestros to really sit me down, and I'm sure he did the exact same thing with you. Just, these are the singers you need to know. These are the books you need to read. These are the operas you need to learn. And are you really serious about this? So it was that just sobering experience that really cemented in me this interest in pursuing opera. And then I remember conducting through the Liu arias from Turandot with Jerry. I remember playing and singing through the first act of Bohème with him. So, and Jerry subsequently became a huge influence. He connected me to a number of other gigs after that, including Washington National Opera, where I conducted Dead Man Walking, but also, more importantly, met my wife, Terry, in DC. So I actually have Pensacola to thank for meeting my wife, Terry, where she happens to have a huge number of family members. I have a bunch of in-laws that actually live in Pensacola and that are actually patrons of the opera.
That's amazing. Well, if any of your wife's family is watching, they should all say hello in the chat so that we know that you have some in-laws watching.
Awesome.
That's great. Yeah. So you trained as a pianist, I imagine, as a lot of us do. Is that correct?
That's correct. I went to the Oberlin Conservatory for piano performance, and it was in grad school where I was studying conducting that I wanted to blend those two things. And opera is just, as you know, that perfect intersection of conducting and piano and working with singers and storytelling and, hey, Sherry. And so, yeah, opera was the perfect intersection of my interests and abilities.
So is that how you kind of fell into opera, was just by trying to figure out what you wanted to do? Or was it the other way around where you discovered opera and you decided, oh, I need to do that?
No, I at first did not like opera. I love musical theater. Like so many of us who are in opera, musical theater is the gateway drug. And so over time and studying music in college and grad school, I learned to love it more. I played for a lot of singers and their voice lessons. And I actually conducted a few musical theater shows. And then finally, when I conducted my first opera, I was hooked.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, definitely musical theater was a gateway drug for me as well.
Was it a particular show or was it just all of it?
No, not really. I mean, I started my first experience with any musical was my freshman year of high school. I played the drums for our production of Annie. So that was the first time I was around any musical theater. And then all through undergrad, I had a big interest. I didn't actually discover opera and start liking it until my junior year of undergrad. So very similar path, I think.
Sure.
So let's start. So now you are a conductor. Let's talk about kind of what does a conductor do? What is the process for you? How early do you have to start preparing to learn a new show? What do you do? What's your first step?
Well, if I'm learning an opera for the first time that I am unfamiliar with, I will try to do the exact same thing that I encourage singers to do. If it's new to me, I'll listen to a recording once and then put it away.
Yes.
This should probably sound very familiar to you because we've worked with a lot of the same teachers and conductors. But after that, I start with the libretto. I start with the text. I dive into the translation. I analyze the poetry. I do all kinds of biographical, stylistic research. At this point now, I feel like I know enough when it comes to style that I know how a Mozart opera should go. I know how, if Mozart writes a particular tempo indication in a particular time signature with note values that are a certain length, then the tempo should go this way. The mood of the numbers should go this way. If it's Puccini and he indicates where the rubato is, I know that's where the rubato goes, and not earlier and not later. We'll often call that come scritto. But actually, and you and I have done a lot of Puccini together in New York State. And yeah, so I mean, I think in both cases, it's a matter of trusting the composer, knowing that they know best, knowing that if they wrote for the theater, they know how the drama should go. Once I've analyzed the score enough, I'll finally take it to the piano, start learning the piano part, start singing along. And I try that before the first day of rehearsals, I'm able to personally play and sing through the entire score on my own, and ideally conduct through the whole show from memory. Now, if it's a show that has a lot of back and forth between me and the singer, like a Baroque opera or a bel canto opera, and there needs to be a lot of agreement about how an ornament should go, how a cadenza should go, that's where I come in with my ideas, and I expect the singer to come in with their ideas, and together we create something that is unique and special. And if it's a more contemporary opera, and the composer has written a lot into the score already, again, that's when I will trust the composer and encourage the singer to find the drama inherent in the score.
Yeah. Now going back to that point about, creating something together with the singer, I think a lot of people might have the, perpetuated in movies and whatnot, that the conductor is kind of like the boss and is the man in charge, and it's almost always a man, which is another problem in itself. But it's really not that way anymore, in my opinion. I mean, it shouldn't be. So what are your thoughts on that, about opera and conducting as a collaborative art form?
I would completely agree. I think that the industry these days especially has bigger fish to fry than dramatic maestros. And I've been around and I have assisted a fair number of them, and there's nothing to convince you that you could be doing something better than a maestro who is throwing a tantrum.
Yes.
It's the same thing with singers. We have bigger fish to fry. Today, when we're fighting for the survival of our industry, we have no business giving in to a conductor or a singer that is complaining about a green room that doesn't have everything they need, or any number of things. We have bigger fish to fry. And also, as an industry, orchestral players are, and I think singers too, don't have the patience for the kind of conductor who is his way or the highway. Fortunately, I would like to think that the conductors today are more collaborative. Also, the conductors appreciate things beyond the artistic element. Half, if not more, of what I talk about with the general director here in Memphis has nothing to do with artistry. It's about how can we create the best quality product with the budget we have.
Yeah.
Money plays so much a part of what we're able to create, especially now when the income that we were expecting in the next several months is not going to be what we were expecting. And so we were expected already to be presenting everything for everyone with fewer and fewer resources. And now that's going to be even more. We're going to have to even break the expectations of our audiences even more, and encourage and convince them even more of what a evolving and innovative form opera is and can be.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that a little more. So, did you guys have to cancel productions in Memphis?
We did. 2 months ago, we canceled our Così fan tutte and went straight into 30 days of digital opera. In Memphis, we, over the past 8 years, have been doing an annual month of free daily public performances all across the city. And we've reached a tremendous number of Memphians, far more than we would have had we just been performing in our opera house. And so the community was already familiar with 30 Days of Opera. And so we rehired the Così cast, and they presented, along with me and our general director, 30 days of digital opera, which included live performances from our homes with on Zoom, on Facebook, on YouTube. They included archive recordings. They included interviews. We were able to perform a little bit in the community before the city shut down and we were all quarantined. And we're going to actually bring that back. This next month, we will be back in the community performing for first responders, performing for people outside their home. It's going to be, we just had a meeting today about the business model of it, because ideally this is also something that we're making a little bit of money off of.
Right.
And trying to figure out how to make that happen is some kind of magic that we've yet to crack. But hopefully eventually, once we get the hang of this and we see what kind of market there is out there for individuals for these specialized curated programs outside their homes or in physically distant outdoor spaces,
right?
Then the next step might be actual productions of 1 or 2 singers with a very small ensemble. Maybe it's family shows with families physically separated from each other. And then we've looked into the possibility of drive-in operas.
Yes.
Which is becoming a very hot item in a lot of opera companies right now. We'll see. It's a very, very undiscovered country for us right now. And hopefully we'll be able to be back in the Opera House performing back in the theater as soon as possible.
Yes, exactly. So you were talking about these traveling performances. I know you guys had a literal mobile stage that you were using, didn't you?
We borrowed a tractor from one of our dear chorus members, which was subsequently stolen.
Oh,
and but we were able to just recently raise the money on Facebook to not only get a new trailer but replace the one that was stolen.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and so this will be where we perform for a little while. Yeah.
So how does that work? Are we performing while it's moving, or do you stop and park?
We've done that before. And in fact, if you go into our YouTube and Facebook video history, you can find evidence of what we refer to as VROOM at Opera Memphis, the Vehicular Roving Opera Operation Module, and singing with piano accompaniment while the vehicle is moving on the street. It was horrific. In this case, we will be stationary and hopefully performing for, as we did a month and a half ago, for neighborhoods that are, again, physically separated. But it was such a gift for people to just come out of their homes onto their patios and experience these moments of beauty when they were just so sick of being stuck in their homes. It was definitely a gift. I'd like to think that it is as essential a service as an opera company can provide.
And just on that, we're all doing so many innovative things right now. We're doing so many things online. But I think with that sort of a performance, it's good for the performers because it gives us, we get to see people reacting. And that's a whole big part of performing, is having an audience reaction. And so when you're doing all of these online things, even if you're doing something live like this right now, I can't see anybody watching and I don't know, but even if you're 20 feet away from them, just to see people listening to your music, I think must be so rewarding and makes it worthwhile.
For sure. And we've actually explored that bridge between online performance and live performance at Opera Memphis last month during 30 Days of Digital Opera. We had a couple games like Opera Bingo or Aria Jukebox, in which the Facebook audience gets to vote on what aria they want to hear. And those were the most successful events that we had last month. It was incredible because the audience was able to play along. They listened to the opera excerpt that we performed, had to identify the opera, and then mark that opera on their bingo card. And the enthusiasm was actually palpable, even in the comments, in the likes, in the loves that kept popping up on Facebook. It was the closest thing that we could do at the time to live interaction with our audience. And again, it's the service that we can provide right now, which is in many cases in our community very desperately needed.
Yeah. Have you been doing any remote performances, like where you're playing and somebody else is singing? Have you been dealing with that at all?
Most of what we've done with in terms of accompaniment is app accompanist. I'm sure you're familiar with.
I have heard of it, yes.
It's not ideal, but it is the closest thing that we can do to have our phones accompany the singers. The singers have a little control over tempo, over the pacing of an aria, but we're limited to arias. There are no ensembles that we can do. When we first started, we still had our rehearsal pianist, Jessica Hall. Do you know Jessica?
I do, yes.
She's a dear one and a dear family member of ours too. We were able to have her record the entire accompaniment to Conductor before she left.
Yes.
And we, based on that, created a 15-minute. We had all of the singers sing their parts to a 15-minute version of Così fan tutte, which I put together into a split-screen Brady Brunch intro style video. So honestly, in the last 2 months, I've spent more time on Adobe Premiere Pro and video editing software like that than I have at the piano, which is
That's
really
so funny.
depressing. I never thought.
I just taught myself Premiere Pro last week, so
it's going to be the future for us for a little while longer, unfortunately. So we've been doing a little bit of that, but I going forward, soon I can see myself being able to perform with a singer 6 feet away in the near future. So hopefully that will be all that video editing stuff will be for someone else to do pretty soon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about happier times. Do you have any favorite productions or any favorite experiences you wanted to talk about?
Well, I mentioned Mozart and Puccini. I mean, there's nothing like doing an opera by a composer who knew how to write for the theater. Fortunately, we also have a lot of living composers who write beautifully for the theater and write on subjects that are more contemporarily relevant in many cases. And so one of the most influential experiences that I've had so far has been working on the opera Dead Man Walking. I conducted it in Boston, and then again in Chicago, and then again I covered it in DC, like I said. And like you, I'm sure you understand that when you're working on a subject matter that has relevance to an audience, whether it's about the death penalty or the transgender community, like As One, which is an opera that I know you did in Pensacola very recently. Yes. Or in the case of Memphis, an opera that we just co-commissioned, The Falling and the Rising, where we are connecting our broader audience to the military community. When you're able to create a sense of empathy between those two communities, audiences today, by and large, have no connection to the military community. I know it's very different in Pensacola, where you have your Air Force base.
Yes.
And we actually have a Navy base outside of Memphis here. But I grew up on the West Coast. I had a bunch of hippies for parents. I spent a lot of time on the liberal coasts. And so I had no connection to the military. But doing this opera, which is meant to tell the stories of our veterans and the sacrifices that they go through, not only when they're out deployed, but especially the sacrifice they have with their family members. This opera, The Falling and the Rising, was incredible in that way. And I've since conducted it in Seattle Opera, and we're hoping to bring it back here in Memphis. It is a profound work that has built this sense, at least in the Memphis community, this sense of identity and connection that our audience has with its military community that protects them. I think you might even have a promotional video for the opera that you can show.
Well, I sure do. Yes, let me get that pulled up so we can. Yeah, there we go.
mission of this piece is to figure out a way to connect civilians to soldiers using art.
These are collaborative stories of what, you know, these particular warriors have went through.
When we went to Walter Reed for the first time and engaged in these interviews and met folks for the first time, it was life-changing.
I like the idea of it being in music because when you have somebody actually playing your role and acting as if they were you, and I don't know, it brings it more to life, I guess.
It shines a new light and expresses a lot more emotion than someone can say to you, but it kind of shows new emotions in the music, so it's a very emotional piece.
Never quite felt energy like that taps into the emotion, that taps into hearing catchphrases that I said. It's powerful. That part that he said about living in the right now, I'm like, that's it right there, brother. That is it right there, living in the right now.
Yeah, wow. Just that promo makes me want to see it even more.
I only saw a screenshot of the very first image. I hope it worked for everyone else at home.
I think it did.
Great, awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible work, and it is a testament to the power that opera, the unique power that opera has to create a sense of connection between communities that might not otherwise have it. So once you do an opera like that,
yes,
as wonderful as Traviata is, it's more, actually maybe these days it's a lot easier to connect with a health crisis like the one in Traviata. But anyways.
Yeah, we're just waiting for our first COVID-19 opera, which I hope is at least 5 or 10 years off. I mean, I think it's going to be too soon.
Let's hope that it's a comedy because.
Well, we've already had our first Zoom opera that happened a couple weeks ago.
That's right.
Which was very innovative. Great. Well, I think we're coming up on our time. Do you have any other specific thoughts about, you know, the current situation and the future of opera? Any wise tidbits to impart before we leave?
I would just encourage everyone in audiences in Pensacola and everywhere else that is watching, support your local opera company. These are very uncertain times for all of us, and certainly the performing arts are going to be the last part of our community to open back up and return to normal. So do everything that you can to let us keep presenting work for you, and know that we are here to serve you. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me today. And I hope that you are staying safe, and maybe you'll be able to leave your house soon.
Thank you. And I know that Terry and I are hoping to make a visit down to Pensacola to visit you and the in-laws as soon as possible.
Great. Yeah, well, we can stand 6 feet apart somewhere and say hello.
Right. On the beach.
All right. Yeah, I know. They're open. Yeah. All right. Take care.
Thanks, Cody.